Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, I think we'll get started. You okay, Jen and Abby? You hear us, Abby?
Morning, I can hear you.
Okay, good morning. Okay, we'll call today's meeting to order. Jen, will you do roll call, please?
Tom McDonald,
Here.
Len Titi, he's gonna be late. Jennifer Finley. Here. Jim Molitor,
Here.
Carol Langford. Here. Terry Pitts. Bing Matt,
Here.
Ellie Bundy. Martin Charlo,
Present.
Mike Dolson,
I'm here.
James Steele Senior.
Thank you, Jen. See, can I start us out today with a prayer? Mike, would you honor us with a prayer, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Creator, in your all-powerful, all-knowing, and especially your all-loving way, bless us as we do the work of our tribe today. Keep in mind all of our people who have lost loved ones. Keep in mind all our first responders. As we approach the new year, give strength to everybody and let them give up any hard feelings they have about the last year. We ask this in your name, amen.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, we have minutes from December 20th. The first order of business here. You review those and get those codified. Abby Ellie's here now.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the December 20th council minutes.
Motion by Martin to approve the December 20th council minutes. Merlin. Second by Mike to approve the December 20th tribal council minutes. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, just one correction I noticed. The Charlo superintendent is named Steve Love, not Steve Lovell.
Okay, yeah. You know, I glanced right over that. I didn't catch that. I always look at Steve. Or Steve from church. Okay, we have a motion and a section. Second, I want to approve the council minutes with corrections. All those in favor? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4. 8, 4. One abstention, Ellie. And Jimmy's out of the room. Okay, we have our agenda today. We have one walk-in item with, 2 walk-in items, okay.
And I have Pete on for one of the walk-ins.
Okay. Is there any other changes to or additions to the agenda? I have a few updates and probably one item for executive. Carol has a couple. Open session, Carol, or executive? Okay. Anything other additions for the agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve today's agenda with additions. Motion by Ellie, second by Jennifer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous? All right. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I have one walk-in that's open and another one that's part open and executive. So
Okay.
Jim would be first, then Jason.
Well, let's just start with the open. Morning, Jim.
You know, this process that I'm here to talk to you guys about is new to me. I'm not very adept in navigating or manipulating or whatever you want to call it through the systems. But as you all know, I'm here to plead my case for this job at the front desk. You know, it's not a complicated job, but due to the processes that are in place, they had to do a criminal background check on me. And they brought up a few things from my past that they say deems me ineligible for this job. So what I'm here to ask you guys is to waive that criminal background check. Because what I'm doing here, I've been doing since COVID first started. I started up in the mountains as a road guard, and they specifically asked me, they wanted me specifically up in the Middle Fork, just because of who I am, you know, for people coming in from the Sealy Lake side. I'm not easily intimidated or things like that. So I was a good fit for that. And Jim put me to work as a door monitor out at the Job Corps. From there, I came down to here, DHRD, then here last year. And I seem to be a good fit for a position like this. You know, I'm a people person. I just tell it like it is, and I approach it like it is, you know. And like I said, sometimes I get a feeling like there's people that don't really know me, that think they look at my background and think, hey man, we can't have this guy here. Look at his record. Well, what certain people like that have to understand is I'm an ex-convict. I'm not a convict. I'm an ex-convict. And I've changed. And a lot of you know that, you know, and I'm proud of that fact. And I just feel like I really enjoy this position where I'm at. You know, it's not a high paying position. It's not a position where I need to have all kinds of this background or degrees or anything. It's a people position, and I'm pretty good at it.
You are definitely.
I would like to stay there.
Yeah.
you know,
Like,
and
any arguments from us? Go ahead, just quickly, Jen.
A little bit of background to it. This job that he's applying for, the deadline date is today at 4:30, so he's trying to get this fixed so he could get an interview. Personnel told him he could come down here and ask to see if it could get waived, so he could get an interview and get on that list.
Yeah, you know, one of the interesting thing about the position is really, it's for those specific funding program activities where they may have that kind of a parameter and limitation to it. And that's not across the board through all the tribal government buildings. I don't think that's a requirement for being, it wouldn't be necessarily any funding source here, unless I'm mistaken, Ruth. I'm gonna look at Ruth because she's my go-to person, but certainly DHRD might have an issue with someone with a criminal background. But I think that would be the issue that we
This
would have,
one is tribally funded.
and it's tribally
Yeah.
funded. So it's just not working in that place where there might be a sensitivity to that. So it's in the building location. So I will be a character reference for Jim because I've recruited Jim myself for positions. And I wanted to actually utilize him as a trainer to train other folks for AIS or security positions to provide that good customer service and hospitality that he has and be able to maintain himself the way he does. And it's pretty outstanding. So really appreciate that. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I recruited Jim out of the mountains.
I know you did.
He hated it.
Dirty dog.
But he's been doing an excellent job. I mean, if I needed anybody that I could depend on, would be there on time, would tell me what's going on, and conducted themselves in a very professional manner because they were representing the tribe right in the forefront. This is the man that did it. I had a lot of faith in him and confidence in him. And if there's a way to use some discretion, however, you're going to have an issue later on with others that are going to come in for the same request. But that's a council thing. But I recommend him out there.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Carol?
Yeah, Jim just touched on what I would like to see, and I know this isn't the first time this has happened. I know the last individual, I remember a person up in personnel quit their job because council was gonna, allow the person to stay in their position. I'm like, God, people change, let's give them an opportunity. And so I know it's based on funding, but we're self-governance. Don't we have any kind of authority to decide who
Well, this is
I know this is tribal.
This
This is
tribal
tribal
funding.
dollars, so we don't have to do that.
it's the actual specific work site would
If
be
I
the
could finish.
limitation for that particular program that might be at issue. So it's a matter, to me, it's a matter of where Jim is placed to work.
But
Not-
I think Jim really, comes in for a lot of other people, not just himself, because there's a lot of people in the same situation. And we need to look at it, Jordan. So whatever you can do to help us maneuver around this. I mean, it's just like somebody smokes pot and we can't allow them to do this or that,
I'll
it's
go ahead and
like-
resign now.
And I know that's a whole different subject, but come on. These are our people we're talking about. So anyway, I'll get off my wagon, but I'm in support of it and I'm in support of others too. Of course, we need to look at the background, but we know in our community, a lot of us know in our community what you do and where you're at in your whole journey. So thank you.
Len, then Ellie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I'll go ahead and make the motion to waive the personnel background policy and allow Jim Adams to apply for the position.
Ellie?
Mr. Chow, second the motion, and just add that I have zero hesitation about you out front. You do an amazing job. You're an amazing person and you've come so far and I support you in any way, absolutely. So glad to have you here.
thank you.
Motion by Len, second by Ellie. Further discussion? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just want to say that I don't think anybody should be defined by their mistakes. I know Jim is a good person and I think he does a really great job making people feel welcomed and acknowledging people who come in here. And it's just always a good thing to come in here and the first thing you see is someone smiling and happy and greeting you. So I just really appreciate the work that you do here in your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Mike.
Just want to say that culturally, when people have done the time, it's supposed to be gone. Whatever happens, it's supposed to be gone.
Thanks,
Thank you, Mike. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? One more time. Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. You guys keep up the good work.
We're counting on our gyms to protect us, you know. Okay, Josie Adams. See Jason. Okay. Is this open? Okay. Okay. Okay, well, we'll move into executive session. The regular session. You're up, Virgil. Come on up. Come back. Oh, geez, you got Doug with you. All right. God. Hey, Doug. Everybody got quite a bit of your information, Virgil, in their packet. We're on page 8 in our packet. It should be there. Excuse me?
One of the pictures I couldn't recognize, the one with the white flowers, the white,
That's East Bay.
is it? That's
Yeah, Flathead Lake.
by the Ducharme.
Yep. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Happy New Year. Doug and I are here to give you an update on the Flathead Lake Flying Rush Controls Program. Since it's kind of a new topic, perhaps to some of the council people, I'll briefly go over the last 10 years of work. Basically, what we'll be asking for is to concur with the Flathead Lake Flying Rush Controls Project, finding of no significant impact. I have the FONSI and the environmental assessment here. We completed that actually a couple of years ago, and then we had more planning to do. But now we're actually ready to implement a controls program on the south end of the lake. Some of the background, we've been investigating rush, which is an invasive aquatic plant in Flathead Lake and River for about the past 10 years. We built a spatial model that predicted approximately 6,000 acres of Flathead Lake shoreline of depths 0 to 10 feet is subject to invasion by flowering rush. And that'd be mostly the west shore, east shore. The east shore is a lot of gravel. It isn't as subject to it, but it's still there in marinas and under docks and whatnot. It is also infests the 10 to 20 foot depths, and we don't really know the extent of that. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the submarines or the drones to go in there and look at that. But what flowering rush does, it creates vegetatively closed water habitats from previously open water habitats. The closed water habitats favor invasive fish over native fish. Fish like bass, perch, pike tend to like those areas, and trout do not. It interferes with recreation and it impedes irrigation water development. There are other undocumented impacts, which include altered macroinvertebrate insect populations. We've documented siltation in shallow bays and increased water temperatures
and there are likely cascading ecological effects that tend to degrade the system further. So some of the prior tribal council actions with flowering rush. Council has approved herbicide trials in the past, and we've completed those. We've identified, at least for some of the treatment sites, satisfactory herbicide trials that will help contain rush. The development of a biological control agent, that's been handled by Washington State University, coordinating through 4 states and 2 provinces. And they do have a candidate now that they've identified as a potential release. And they're starting the evaluation is, can one be released in Flathead Lake or river, or we're looking for a suitable habitat for it. And where was I? We completed an environmental analysis with the help of CSKT Natural Resources and Historic Preservation Office. And I really want to thank them. They did an excellent job. We had really good comments from Natural Resources and Historic Preservation. They had quite a bit of work to do on it because we had them review a rather large potential project. Scale and scope of this is, we have about 60 miles of shoreline and about 300 spots that we've identified. Right now we have about 100 property owners who have signed up to collaborate with us. And we decided with the council's decision and direction a couple of years ago that we wanted the adjacent landowner to be knowledgeable and to somehow participate in the activity. And we got at least 100 signed up. People on the lake are a little hard to get a hold of. They don't want to be getting a hold of. Sometimes they ignore their mail. So this will be the first year of treatments. We want to roll this out and work on the other couple hundred of sites that we should be also working on. This proposal will be treating approximately 24 acres scattered across those 62 miles. A lot of them are small spots, you know, a couple square feet to the size of the table. We do have a couple of spots, maybe 2 to 5 acres that we'll be treating. There are large infestations in East Bay, Elmo Bay, and Dayton Bay that aren't going to be involved in this. They're large infestations. We're not quite sure how to handle that. Probably that's more candidate for biological control. Natural Resources and Historic Preservation conducted their initial review of treatments in 2022, and they provided input for the 2023 implementation. So the action we're looking for, acceptance of the FONSI and concur with commencing of treatments starting in April 23. Funding for this project is coming from the Army Corps of Engineers and Montana Department of Natural Resources, and they'll pay for treatments, some of the monitoring to the college and administration of the contracts. What we see happening, okay, the priority treatment areas, these were identified by the ID team. One, lower Flathead River above the dam to lessen propagules entering the irrigation system through the Pablo pumping plant and flushing down over the dam. Some of those are going to be a little tricky. We're not quite sure how to treat those because the banks are very steep. So we're going to continue to investigate that. We did include sites that were more up by the sewage plant. So we're going to be working on those, but to treat those right above the pool behind the dam might be a little tricky. We identified high boat traffic in recreational areas to reduce the spread by boats and lessen impacts to recreation. We'll look at the leading edge of large infestations and spot infestations that are likely to grow together into larger patches. Then the fourth priority are the large patches in East Bay, Elmo Bay, and Dayton Bays. So the goals, this is not to eradicate this plant, but it's to reduce the top growth and try to reestablish open water habitat. To reduce the reproductive rhizome mass. Rhizomes are the roots that come out of the ground, and that's how the plant spreads. To develop and maintain a database of infestations, affected landowners, and the treatment results. And primarily to reduce the habitat favorable to invasive fish, but also to reduce the impacts to recreation. Swimmer's itch is closely associated with flowering rush. The parasite that causes swimmer's itch in people has a co-host in snails, and snails do really well in these areas. Okay.
Good, Carol?
Actually, how is the treatment done?
We'll be treating with hand application wands,
Spray?
and it's on the dry lake bed. We do it in April, so we do it at low water.
Okay, and then you post it that it's been sprayed, right?
Yeah, we'll put a post on the dock in the area. The landowners are going to know that we'll be there treating. Likely the landowners won't be there in April, but they'll be contacted and we'll notify them that we'll be there, and we'll put a sign on the dock that was posted.
I know we had a tribal member who walked in an area that had been sprayed and it really damaged his lungs. He's still sick to this day, and he never even reported it. It wasn't marked, so it didn't happen here, but yeah, so I'm always concerned about that.
Okay. This slide shows what flowering rush can do. The center picture that Carol was commenting on, that's only happened one time in 15 years here. Flowering rush does not flower very often, but it occasionally does. And in 2008, East Bay looked completely like that. And that hasn't happened yet. I usually don't use that picture because people are going to always look for the flower then. More typically, it looks like the pictures on the left and the right. That one picture there, those are both East Bay right there at Ducharme Fishing Access. We're not going to be treating that big block. We're going to be doing some treatment areas around the, it's not really a fishing access anymore, but there at Ducharme, it's more of a, people use their kayaks and things like that. The boat ramp doesn't work very well. The infestation on the right there is what the Lower Flathead River looks like in places. We won't be treating those kind of sites either because those are underwater, not completely underwater, but they're submerged at all times. So we won't be treating those either. We'll be treating areas, the lower right there is a photo. If you look at the far ground, with these treatments, we do remove the majority of the top growth. There'll be a few sprigs coming up. Now, we did extended trials. We went over 7 years of continued treatments. And after 7 years, we were finally able to reduce the rhizome mass down to the number said 0. Probably not 0, but it did take quite a while. So this is a longer term effort. We can reduce the propagules, there's no doubt, and we can reduce and limit the spread. Can we go down? This is a general location map of where our treatments are situated. They're scattered around the whole 62 miles. If you start up on the east shore, the furthest one out there is the biological station. We'll be doing a small amount of work there, and then we come south, that's Blue Bay. There's a little work there. There's some marinas on Finley Point that are full that we'd like to get cleaned up. And then down in East Bay, around Ducharme, there's quite a few people on the east shore there, where the highway comes down close to the lake. The majority of the treatments are on the west shore. So we'll be moving over to the west shore. The pink dots on there are eagle nest locations, and there's special concern about those. We'll be working with wildlife on what other restrictions we have there. That's basically a no entry zone. It's a half-mile no entry zone. And some of those are close to some of the spots we have proposed treatment on. So if they have a problem with those, we won't treat those. Okay. And this is only showing the general locations of the 100 we'll be treating. There's another 200 sites out there that we'd like to include down the road. This is just a shot on the river down by the airport. If you look down in the lower left, there's a rather large, it's a white area with red dots, and that's probably one of the bigger patches that we'll be treating. That's about a 4-acre patch. And the landowner's been treating that patch on their own for a number of years. And they've seen considerable improvement. Another small patch is up along the shore, up by the sewer plant. And beyond that, most of those are pretty small spots. Okay, we'll be treating like tabletop sizes. Okay. And this is on the west shore. a little bit up past, like, say, Bear Harbor on Rocky Point Road. These are just examples of what some of the, how they're distributed across there. They're distributed, there's a lot of ground to cover. So these have all been cleared. Our next steps, if you do concur with the Fonzie and to go ahead with the project, we'll be developing a contract for an applicator and advertising for an applicator. That will be between SKC and the applicator. And we will submit that to the tribes for review, legal department for review, to make sure it's adequate for liability. We'll have at least $1 million liability limits required by the applicator and any other requirements that the legal department sees fit to put in that. Go ahead, Carol.
Was the contract reviewed by OAB? Contract?
We'll be sending it to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we accept the Fonzie and concur with commencing on treatment April 23rd, 2023.
Motion by Carol to accept the Fonzie and concur with the Flowering Rush work project commencing in 2023. Second by Martin. Any further discussion? I got one question. Do you have to get a shoreline permit for this?
Yes.
And you do it every year?
Yes.
Or just for the whole project?
No, we'll get one every year.
Okay.
And we have to renew the Historic Preservation Office clearances too.
Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So does it have to come to maturity in the flowers to spread it, or?
The flowers are actually sterile. It doesn't flower very often, as I mentioned. I should have talked about that a little bit more. The roots are how it spreads. The seeds when it does flower, they're sterile flowers. They're sterile seeds. Across the country, there's two different genotypes of this plant. In the east, around Maine and Connecticut and those areas, those plants flower every year and they produce viable seed. But it's not as aggressive as the sterile one that we have. The sterile one's more aggressive. It spreads faster.
One last question, Virgil. Is there any work being done upstream?
I'm working with them, not yet. They're doing some monitoring. I've offered to share anything that we've done here to encourage them. And I'm not quite sure who to talk to up there that it's resonating.
Martin, is that a topic under MISC?
It is. Since they're changing the Flathead Basin Commission and combining it with the UC3, I think that's something to involve the entire lake. And so it's brought up occasionally.
Well, the point of origin is actually up north of Flathead Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working. I mean, at the MISC Summit, there were people from Canada, and Virgil did a report on some of these issues as well. So we're definitely talking about.
Okay, good.
There's quite a bit of work going downstream as well. We're trying to get them interested up north, because I don't see much reason for us to do work down here if it's not going to happen up north in the long term.
Okay.
But there's a lot of work going on in Washington and Oregon as well. They're very concerned about thank you. They're very concerned about the potential for pike down there and preying on salmon. An interesting piece of work that we did do a few years ago is I partnered with University of Montana, and we took a look at pike genetics from this area, from where pike are considered to have originated on the west side in Dry Fork. They were planted there. And then they got into the rivers and whatnot. And if you got into regional discussions with fish biologists from Washington and Oregon and Idaho, they would definitely say that we were giving them northern pike. And I give credit to our fisheries managers that they said, no, our pike are probably not going down over the dam. And the genetic study showed that the pike that are in the middle of Columbia more than likely came from Lake Coeur d'Alene. And that makes sense because they're connected and they're closer. So I think that was a pretty good piece of work that U of M helped us with.
Absolutely. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, I believe. Bing, did you vote? Yep, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll take a quick 5-minute break and then we'll be up with Greg and Lisa. 5 minutes, keeping you to it.
Renee, so you'll be this afternoon? Okay.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, man, I've been a slave driver with this crew and I've been making them work right through their lunch, so I, had to give them a little break.
Good afternoon, Steve Stanley, Lake County Commissioner, officially elected this time rather than appointed.
Yes, congratulations, Steve.
My name is James Lopatka. I'm the new county attorney.
And congratulations to you too.
Thank you.
I'd say that was a win for all of us, for both of you guys, so thank you.
Well, we both wanted to come down here today and just introduce ourselves since we're going to be around for at least 4 and 6 years and discuss anything you'd like to and perhaps identify some areas that we can work together on. And I usually like to come down here about every year and take questions about what the county attorney's office is doing in regards to prosecution, talk about the fentanyl epidemic that we're all dealing with, and the problems in our jail, and the good people that work for you that are working with me to help solve some of these problems. So if Mr. Stanley wants to chime in.
I thought I'd go over some of the projects I've been working on the last year and a half and some of the things I want to look forward to in the future. I've spent the last year and a half spending about $800,000 in our detention facility and have made some great changes. We now have 4 operable electric doors. It's been repainted. It's a much nicer facility than it was. Public health generator I got done, so now that building has backup power, and of course the courthouse roof. Some things on the radar in the future, animal control, and we've had several meetings trying to decide what direction to go with the incorporated cities and the tribe and the animal shelter. And I think after talking to a few folks, chairman included, we're sort of shifting gears, and the shifting gears is the tribe, the 3 incorporated cities in the county sitting down and seeing if we can't figure out a way to address the animal control issue on the reservation in the county. My personal opinion is things like having all our ordinances the same. So it doesn't matter where the animal is, the same rules apply. Funding, of course, is going to be a huge piece in supporting animal control. I think that when I say animal control and not animal shelter, animal control has to have a vision when an animal comes in the facility, what happens and what kind of period of time. I'll be meeting with Missoula City County Animal Control tomorrow, trying to get their operator procedures and just their guidelines that they work with. Then hopefully the next couple of weeks, pull a meeting together with the tribe, the 3 incorporated cities and the county. I have not talked to St. Ignatius, but everyone else is on board right now to do that project. The other thing we probably should mention, Lake County solid waste has been a real hot topic lately. And I think we did a really, really poor job of rolling out what we did. And that started at the Ravalli site, and it started out because it was a bear issue. Thank you. And then we went to a tag system. We did a really, really poor job. We have a new solid waste director now that comes to us from Oregon, and he's got some really neat visions of what we might be looking at in the future. But to be really clear, I guess, the Lake County Solid Waste is an enterprise fund, and we have to have the people that use it pay for it. And how to do that fairly, I don't know, but there will be some changes. I guess what I want to share with council today, what we did, I don't think has been good. I don't think it's worked, and I can tell you there will be some changes coming down the road. Stacy, I think, will be a good leader and making good, sound decisions in the future.
So is that Stacy's your new employee?
Yes.
Stacy.
Kinte, I think is his last name.
Stacy Kitte.
From Oregon, and I really like his attitude. He's been with us 2 weeks now, and He's gonna present to us, I think, the 12th or the 13th on a rollout of his visions and what he thinks we should do in the future. And I guess I would like to share, we have Rich Jensen on our solid waste board. When we have solid waste meetings, feel free to attend if you have something, or get hold of Rich. We definitely have to take in considerations the frustrations of the concerns of the tribe when it comes to solid waste. But I can share with you that I think you'll see some changes in where we are today in the near future. I guess another thing I want to leave you with, I don't have any campaign promises to share with you. I guess I have a vision, and in the next 6 years, my hope is to leave it a little better than I found it. I will not be running again in 6 years. This political thing has been a real education for me. I'll be 76 at that point, and I guarantee you I will be retired again. I cannot believe we can't find areas that we can agree and we can work together, and we will find areas that we won't agree, and that's perfectly fine. But not to take the time and the energy to find those areas and at least make a win out of areas that we can, I think is a great loss for everybody. So with that, if you have any questions for me, I'd love to answer.
Thank you, Steve. Council, any questions for Steve? I know in one of the things to help kickstart the animal control issue, Steve and I and Ellie talked about it, was possibly even having a field trip down to Missoula County to look at the facilities down there. And that might be a good catalyst for us. But definitely we talked about the county and the tribe stepping up in more of a lead role to get something done. And one of the new paradigms, if some of you aren't aware of it, is the positive hits that so many dogs in eastern Montana are coming up with brucellosis. And so that puts a whole nother operating framework on a dog shelter or a pet shelter, because once you get brucellosis, you don't get rid of it. And so, and they were getting as high as 25% positive test rate in all the dogs they sample. And these are not just stray dogs. These are dogs that are at people's houses. And so that means that they become unadoptable. And so that's a whole different framework for people in this type of work. So I will always, it's always been there, brucellosis back in the day. All the farm animals had brucellosis, and it was ungulate fever. And until Louis Pasteur came around and pasteurized milk, it was really lethal for children to get ungulate fever. So, but all the animals, the cats, the dogs, a lot of the farm animals all have brucellosis, and then they potentially become a transmitter, whether they have any symptoms or not. Most of them don't, but they can transmit the disease. And so that becomes, under APHIS rules and policy, a control animal issue. And so that's something that we'll have to consider. So what does that mean? That means that maybe, that's one of the course filters in the future. That's an automatic, as we do with other animal and wildlife. It's a put down measure. So we don't test for brucellosis here in western Montana, but if there's a 25% infection rate in central and eastern Montana, I suspect we have some pets over here that have brucellosis.
Mr. Chairman, I guess a couple other things. The director of Missoula City Animal Control was more than willing to do the tour, so I'll get that done tomorrow. For the council folks that aren't aware of the MRAC property down by Ronan, the city of Ronan and Lake County, I think I have 30 acres. The tribe has 30 acres, and this is over by the sewage lagoons. We have looked at county property available to build an animal control facility. The other piece that we're having discussions with are the ability to have in-house treatment for our drug offenders. And I think a vision of mine would be to be able to involve those folks in animal control and working with the animals and helping staff the facility. And I know the commission is really serious about trying to do something with the residential drug treatment program. And we thought that area would be someplace we'd like to look at real seriously. So those discussions we're having right now.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm hoping we can think about involving Sanders County as this folds out.
As far as animal control,
Yeah.
I think the answer is yeah. I know Missoula County, I got the kick out of her voice, and I'm gonna have to ask her. She was sort of excited to hear that we were having these discussions. Apparently, the southern part of the reservation is of course, Missoula County. And yes, Sanders County should be involved, and I think Dixon probably be the biggest area, but, well, and actually, yeah. Yep, you're correct. I guess my thought would be initially to give a framework that we're gonna be working within before we bring them in. But yes, I agree, Sanders County.
We'll try not to forget about you guys over there, you know, on the west side. Yeah, I appreciate, when Steve talks about, looking at property we have the close proximity to each other, that it brings different potentials for what the development could be and what the how you can hit many topics with the same project. And so I really think that's really something to think about when you talk about the therapy of animals and how that works for someone's recovery and changing their outlook on their future. And so that's really a really interesting topic. And I certainly would support looking at something like that, because I think that's a paramount in getting people out of the jail, get them in another facility, and having their whatever the drug court might be or whatever it might be, have that kind of an outcome in a facility like that. That's and we're short manpower to run a dog shelter or a pound. Just it really does play out pretty nicely. Thanks for bringing that up, Steve. Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I had heard from a individual at Ameren when I was down there that Seattle is always looking for dogs and they're willing to take any strays. I mean, sure, they all have to be shots and all that kind of stuff, but they really have a shortage of dogs. And so he was gonna look into that for me and get me more information on how that process would work. But that's one way to not have to destroy dogs.
James?
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned getting people out of jail and into some type of drug treatment, and I just kind of wanted to give an update on some of the stuff that we've been doing to try and streamline those processes. Unfortunately, our jail is very overcrowded, and about every week, today included, I sit down with our commanders and go through the list of every person in our jail and make sure that we need them there. We've been putting increased emphasis on trying to get chemical dependency evaluations done on inmates as quickly as possible, because it provides a wider range of options for what we can do with them in the criminal context. It's an ongoing problem trying to get those evaluations done on incarcerated individuals. There's a lot of funding sort of based hurdles, and I know that we've made some attempts to try and get individuals who are covered by tribal health access to those services while they're incarcerated. At the tribal jail, it's my understanding that Ann Miller's had some success getting tribal health licensed addiction counselors to come in and do those evaluations. But I don't think we've had that success in our jail, and I suspect it's a funding issue, that we're ultimately responsible for the health care of the people in our facility. But if you've got the staff or the resources to help with that, that would be a tremendous benefit to those individuals. The evaluation is the first step to getting a bed date someplace. I know that many of the defense attorneys I work with have been working with Patricia at Tribal Health to try and get funding for placement, sometimes out of state. We've been sending more and more individuals over to Spokane and Arizona and out to eastern Montana. There's clearly a need for a program here locally, but for the time being, getting those evaluations done and getting that funding approved oftentimes is the best way to get those individuals the help they need and doing it quickly so they're not languishing in a jail is kind of one of my priorities. Through the years, I've worked with the tribal prosecutors to try and coordinate some of the targeted prosecutions of those people, and I've always taken Ann Miller at the Tribal Defender's office up on her offers to help rehabilitate people for us, and I like to thank all the work that she does over there. Dana Comes at Night is apparently working on a treatment court, a family wellness court under Judge Plouffe. That she's trying to get up and running right now. And I hope that we can continue to partner with her to help do referrals and get people into her program, sort of all hands on deck if we can get people accountable and working a program. And our drug court is in good hands right now here at the 20th Judicial District. Judge Molly Owen replaced Judge Manley. The governor saw fit to steal the smartest person out of my office and put them on the bench, but she's been doing a wonderful job with that drug court program and keeping it thriving. So we're continuing to do everything we can to support that.
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, okay. This issue's come up so many times within our organization, not just with county, but the CD assessments again, and I'm not sure if we're anywhere farther than we were when we discussed it at the table. I don't know, it's been a year ago now, and I would certainly like to have an update on that, and then also include county. I mean, we're talking about our people, and if we can do something to help them get into treatment along with county, let's do it. Let's do what we can to, you know, hopefully get them turned around on a good path.
Unfortunately, sometimes when there's a delay in getting those evaluations, sometimes it changes the indicated treatment. And as silly as this is, based off of some of their metrics, if you haven't used drugs for 2 months because you've been in jail for 2 months, then you don't need inpatient treatment anymore, according to the matrix that the bean counters use for these things. So oftentimes getting those evaluations done promptly helps open the doors to the treatment that these folks need. I know that our jail would do whatever they could to accommodate a counselor coming in and doing those evaluations, even though we're bursting at the seams. You can use my office. I mean, like we'll find a closet in the courthouse or something to get that done if you've got the personnel who are able to do that.
Here's a question for my excellent law enforcement staff sitting back there. Is there a problem with the assessments in your shop right now? Or are you experiencing it?
I think if the folks are in jail is when they're getting the most attention. It's the court ordered CD assessments once they're out of jail that aren't being completed in a timely manner. But if they're in our facility, Ann usually gets people down. We forward a jail roster to Ann's office every day. Every day she sees a client on there that she can possibly help, or a client that she's already working with. She sends folks down to interact with them. So it's not a problem with them as long as they're in my care. And I'd have to discuss this with Ann, but as long as we're getting updated jail rosters from my county, I don't know. I hate to speak for Ann and her shop, but I know Ann helps a lot of folks, and I don't think she'd be opposed to trying to help up there as well.
Can I just comment before? I think James hit it on the head, is that it's about the funding issue. If we were able to, if they wanted to contract one of our employees to come in and do those CD evaluations, or pay one of our employees, or if we can get somebody to do that, that would be, we would jump on that and do that, I think. But I think it comes down to, once they're incarcerated within the county, I think it's the legal responsibility for the county to take care of those funding things. And I don't know whether we have that additional funding to, for us as a tribal facility or government to go in and actually do those CD evaluations when they're sitting in jail. We can do it if they come out, but I think in order for them to even attempt to get out of jail, they have to have that CD evaluation done before they can even get out of jail. Usually the judge won't release them until a CD evaluation has been done. in other counties. But I think though, when Teresa was running tribal health at the time, we had got a particular individual that was going into our tribal jails, and we contracted with her to get in there right away to do a lot of those on behalf of our tribal members because they were incarcerated within our facilities. So we were able to do that. But I think it becomes a funding issue on how to separate that and do that. And that's something that we probably need to evaluate and determine how we would go about doing those. If that makes sense, or does that?
No, it does. It does. So yeah, we would be a subcontractor, kind of a role. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Stanley, James, Louis. Yeah, I mean, my info is a little dated. I was one of the reentry case workers over there, and we did go up to Lake County as much as we could. We did the initial assessment that would kind of indicate whether or not what they needed, and so I know that, you know, it's just manpower. I mean, if you're seeing half the people in this jail and then trying to get up to Lake County, it's not easy. And so, you know, I appreciate, you know, kind of what you're doing with a lot of our members. I see them going to treatment and being somewhat successful, and, you know, but I think that it's manpower and funding. And that's, you know, I know you guys are short of each, and if we can, you know, I think Ann has a licensed counselor now that does those in our jail, right, Louis? And so again, it'd be a funding issue how we could send them up there to get the tribal members or the native population assessed there quickly to get them to treatment and kind of strike while the iron's hot while they really want to go.
Yeah, if it's really just the issue of getting the funding to pay whatever the Medicare rate or whatever is for those things, I think I'd be willing to start digging around for a pocket of money to start doing that if we could have the manpower who could come up and do that reliably. I mean, I'll pay $150 if it can help me get somebody out of the jail before the 3-day weekend. But perhaps I'll have to have a conversation with Ann and see if there's any opportunity for that. Medical insurance billing isn't my strong suit. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to go to law school. Carol?
Yeah, I just want to say, as we sit on gazillions of dollars, we could just ask Jordan if you could bring that up with the executive team and get that figured out how it can be done, and James will do his part, and then just be in contact with Jordan because next time you come in here, I want you to say, yeah, it's been successful and we've had all these people sent to treatment because we were able to now do a CD assessment, chemical dependency.
Well, the important aspect also is having a bed at those treatment facilities, and that's a tremendous need. Again, it goes to you know, having something more capacity or prepaying for those beds somehow would be another issue. But I think the critical thing that you're mentioning, James, it needs to be done immediately. It's got to be done real quick.
And it's painful to watch the medical billing portion of this and slow things down because it's more expensive to incarcerate people, and there's significantly more downsides, and it's delaying the treatment that they need. But it is a process, and unfortunately, we, like Louis said, when people are in jail, we have their attention, and I like to let people out of jail with a roadmap to success, and so that evaluation is the first step, and a lot of times it indicates that they could do outpatient treatment, and so if a guy gets an evaluation and says he should do outpatient treatment, he's got an appointment to go do that next Tuesday, we'll let them out of jail and hope for the best. And there's a better than 50% success rate for people that we get them sober, get them pointed in the right direction, and get them an appointment and send them off. But we've got to have the manpower to get that done before we can let them out. Otherwise, they just don't come back until they get arrested again.
Yeah, Martin?
Do you work at all with like the the sober living houses that are out there as far as people that say need to get clean or trying to be clean and as just kind of an outlet for them to not go back to their old kind of, you know, the places where they were using before. I think that's through Never Alone recovery.
So I've worked with Don Roberts now for, I'm getting old, 6, 7, 8 years now, I think, and Angela Evans for about 8 years, and I support all their programming, and I know that the Scooby's House has been up and running. The prosecution side, we agree to whatever defense attorneys can sort of line up, but I'm very supportive of that, and I think if we had more sober housing, that would help. One of the problems with not having our own local inpatient treatment program is that we send people someplace else, and they get well for 30 days, and they get an aftercare treatment plan, but it's not ironed out. And they come back here and they aren't, the handoff to those services isn't as smooth as it could be. And so if we did have an inpatient treatment program here in Lake County, it would be important to me that it is seamlessly integrated with aftercare and sober living, so that we're not just taking people from a very structured environment and then putting them in too unstructured of an environment too soon. So I have seen a lot of success in people that successfully step down from inpatient treatment to sober living as a component of aftercare, and they can get their feet on the ground and get a job and find their own place to live, and do that with a security net around them so that they aren't just going back to their brother's couch or whatever and falling back into those same patterns and those same people and problems.
Yeah, go ahead.
James, I just had a question for you. Is the county having a hard time getting a social worker that's licensed to come in and do a CD evaluation for the inmates there, or is that, or I guess that would be the question, why the inmates are sitting for so long and not being able to get that CD evaluation done?
The licensed addiction counselors that our defense attorneys typically work with and contract through, I think they're busy, and coming to our jail isn't a huge priority for them. And we also have to deal with the, so I guess if you're not in jail and you want to get a chemical dependency evaluation, that's a healthcare thing. And when you're in a jail, it's not an urgent healthcare thing. It's a public defender, criminal justice evaluation thing. And so the funding mechanism for those evaluations when they're in our facility is that the public defender's office approves payment for that. And I think that that's another administrative hurdle to getting that done. The defense attorney has to apply for that with their agency and get approved funding. And then there's the going rate that the state will pay for those things. And
But it's the judge that's ordering it on the recommendation of the county attorney, or is it not?
it's not the judge that's ordering it, it's the defense attorney who's getting that evaluation.
No, who's ordering the evaluation in order for the person to get out of jail? Because I mean, I can't really speak for the county of Lake County, other than I know Missoula County. It's usually, and when I have seen it, is that they will require them to have that CD evaluation before they can get out of jail. But the judge is ordering that to happen based on recommendations of the county attorneys. So is that not the case with Lake County? That's not what's happening and why they're being required to do a CD evaluation?
No, our judges aren't requiring those evaluations. The defense attorneys are requesting them on their own because that changes the outcome for those cases. But I'd love to buy you lunch and talk a lot more about that. I have no idea how they do that in Missoula.
Well, I guess it's just a follow-up to say, I don't understand why you're saying that they're sitting, then they can't get out until a CD evaluation is completed. They can't get out. So you're saying that it's who's ordering it or who's making them stay in jail then if that CD evaluation?
They're staying in jail because I won't let them out until that gets done.
So the
Not-
county attorney's requesting it and the judge is ordering it on behalf.
Judge isn't really ordering it, the judge is just,
So that's part, but that's part of the sentencing, right? I mean, for them to be out, I mean, it's part of your recommendation as a county attorney.
so this all happens adjudication as a part of a plea agreement process. And so the judges typically don't get involved in ordering things at that stage. Sometimes people plead guilty and the judge will order that they get an evaluation as a part of their probation. Unfortunately, the dominoes don't usually line up quite that way. People want some certainty into what it is that they're going to have to do. And so the defense bar is getting ahead of that, but by them getting ahead of it, they're slowing it down, if that makes any sense.
My question was just to see, I mean, you're saying that it was a barrier for those CD evaluations getting done, but it comes at a price as to who's requesting them to be done before they can get out and to have that. So then it becomes the monotonous administrative of trying to get those done after it's been requested.
Yeah, a lot of times if we wait until the end and have a judge order it, it either doesn't get done or it doesn't get done in a timely way. And then a person has an opportunity to sort of screw up after they've been sentenced instead of get on track before.
That makes sense. All right, what about those gravel pits, Steve?
Well, it is still in need. Lake County presently is working on permitting an existing pit that the Arley School District owns, and that's down, it's to the east Arley schools, I guess. The volume is not there to do a large project. So I go back to what we talked about a year ago, was working with the tribe to find gravel that we would crush and try to improve Jocko Road. And the problem with Jocko Road is the amount of gravel it needs is tremendous. And quite frankly, the money just isn't there to do it properly. I think it'd be a win-win, as I did a year ago, for fire management and for everybody to have Jocko Road, especially with the projects that irrigation is going to be doing up there, the upper diversion on the Jocko, that type of thing. So we're still wide open. If there's some gravel available that we can crush to help do that road, Jay Gurick would love to move there this spring if he can. We're hoping we get the gravel pit relicensed in Arley, and we are in the relicensing process. So we're wide open. Jocko Road's still on our radar screen. And I think what you'll see us do, you're doing a project about 2 miles up Jocko Road now, and we'll try to do some improvements as we can. But it'd be nice to do that whole section and just get that project done. I also, Mr. Chairman, would like to leave Carol with something. My wife and I are really active in Big Sky Rottweiler rescues. And I think a very aggressive adoption program needs to be part of the program. The thing I liked about Missoula, Moose, our new Rottweiler, went through a period of time, and I don't know what that was, and his day was coming up, they were going to put him down. He was very lucky, and he found a foster and a new home, us. But I think that has to be part of the solution. And Missoula, I understand, works fairly closely with the Humane Society, and I want to understand that relationship. But if I gave the impression this was a one-way deal for animals, that's not my feeling. It's a many-pronged problem. We just need to have a real clear definition of how it's handled.
Martin?
I mean, in the meantime, I know a shelter's down the road, but one of the discussions that we had at one of our meetings was just, you know, the animal population is going to keep increasing if we don't be proactive about, you know, spay and neuter clinics and those type of things. And I know that Philip down at ARC, you know, they try to do theirs periodically, but, you know, we should be doing them every month and trying to, you know, just at least maintain the population. Yeah, I know that's cost prohibitive to people to actually get their animals spayed and neutered. You know, with rising costs of everything, I don't think it's a priority. And so, you know, I don't care how many facilities we build, if our population keeps going up, you know, I mean, I don't want to equate that to our substance abuse, but it's kind of the same thing. If you don't treat the root of the cause, it's just gonna, you know, the cancer is gonna keep growing. And so we really, you know, I talk a lot about being proactive on things, and that's something that, you know, I think we would fully support that, you know, to partner with doing spay and neuter clinics. We have a site out at Job Corps, if that building's still there, that they used for one of the spay and neuter clinics that Philip put on, and it worked well. I actually got one of my pets taken care of there, and it was basically, other than the shots, was free. And so it's something that, you know, and it was packed. I mean, that's the other thing. It was nonstop there. And so if people have that access, I think they'll actually use it. We just got to kind of provide that. So I hope that, you know, that's something, a conversation we can continue to have. I know that is cost prohibitive with the vets, but you know, Philip says there's traveling vets that will come around and do these clinics at either low cost or just for, you know, the cost of room and board or something, you know, so I think we have the opportunity here to kind of work together to get this off the ground. So thank you guys.
Martin, I think the one thing that frustrates me is, and Ronan just did pass animal ordinance. We've never had a unified front in trying to address the issue. And so I see bringing the tribe, the 3 incorporated cities in the county together to talk about laws and ordinances when it comes to pets, and getting a united front. And I think as well as adoption has to be a part of it. I think spayed and neuter clinics has to be part of it. There's been no unified effort in trying to go down a road where we all end up at the same place. And I think we've been so fractionalized over the years that we've never been able to address the problem. I think the goal initially has to be to bring the groups together and get a vision and start to go down that road. And I think you're right. Is a problem that's here today, and there's probably some things we can do today if we get a framework put together to work within. And I think that is a charge, at least initially.
The law enforcement officers with the municipalities that I've worked with over the years have been frustrated when it comes to enforcing the municipal animal control ordinance because they don't apply to tribal members living in the city of Polson or Ronan or St. Ignatius. And many times they will seize an animal and then they don't know if the owner of this animal is a tribal member or not. And a tribal member will come forward and claim that animal, and the municipality doesn't have any way to do that. And in some instances, the owner of the animal is righteously angry that this government entity stole their dog that doesn't have jurisdiction or authority to do that, but those animal control officers had no reason to know that. And that's also come up for me when we had a dog attack one of our police officers and cause some serious injuries to him. Ripped his tricep down to the bone. And this one individual owned the animal and thought it would be cute to try and say that his girlfriend owned it because then I wouldn't have jurisdiction over that. And it's a mess. And without putting a whole lot of thought into it, I'm kind of on the fly here, but it would be helpful from an enforcement standpoint if the tribes would adopt the municipal ordinances in the municipalities and adopt them by incorporation somehow into the CSKT laws codified, and then at least the law would be the same and we could sort out the appropriate venue later, but we could apply it evenly. Or we could try and work with the municipalities in the county to adopt a uniform policy valley-wide. But it's complicated to deal with.
dogs. Agree with you 100%. I was, got caught in that situation myself at my house. Where big old dog almost killed my wife, and killed her dog almost, and the city couldn't do anything about it. Even our tribal law enforcement really couldn't do anything about it, but not good.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Tom, because I snicker a little bit about dogs because I'm sure you have people complain about dogs to you, and I have them complain to me, and there's not a lot I can do about it most of the time. But I am very worried that at some point we're going to have some dogs that are going to kill somebody or seriously injure a kid or an elder. It's happened here in Montana, and it probably will happen here. And I'd like to think that we're working together to try and avert that before it happens. Because it's a serious safety risk to a lot of people, particularly our small people and our elderly people.
Indeed. Martin, you have some? No?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. If I would have been home that day, there would have been a dead dog in my driveway, but I wasn't, and I almost ended up with a dead dog and a wounded wife instead. People claim that hey, you don't have nobody has jurisdiction over me, and yeah, it wasn't good. It was a big dog. I went dog hunting actually. Couldn't find it. They took the dog out of town. Good, Martin.
And I think kind of to that point is that, I talk a lot about, this is, a community problem. And one of the things that I think really turned a lot of the participants away from these meetings was that the one lady kept referring them as Indian pets and Indian dogs. And I'm like, this isn't, I don't think wild dogs really discriminate. Especially, I've had my daughter somewhat attacked here in Pablo when she was younger, and it's terrifying to have a pit bull dragging your kid around by, thankfully it was by her sweatshirt hood, and again, it was like the dog just, I still see it running around with no collar and everything else, and so, I think that these things that we can come together as, governing bodies to work together on. I mean, we're going to be a lot stronger doing it together than we would separately. And so I really appreciate, this conversation happening and, being the Pablo rep, well aware of the dog issues. So they all come from Ronan, apparently.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think that a lot of counties are struggling with animal control issues and not really having the infrastructure to deal with the growth that's happening in Montana. So one thing I hope is the conversation goes forward is that the group, I've been to a couple of the meetings, is that something I think should be on the table is some public-private partnerships. I think this would be a really good opportunity to think about how the county and the tribe, but also some private entities could collaborate for animal control, because I think there's just going to be continued growth in Lake County, and people living here seasonally, potentially abandoning their pets. I just think that's going to be a big issue, but I think that's something that would be worth exploring seriously, is some also private partnerships with how this service can be provided in Lake County.
Mr. Chairman, the other bright spot is, at least as far as Lake County commissioners are concerned, we're all on the same page, and I think that's new. We all agree this is an issue that we want to work on, so that's a bright spot for me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike. I see you got your hand up.
James, I worked with Stu Levitt to develop a draft reservation-wide animal ordinance. We based it on what Ronan had out there, tribal ordinances and Missoula County ordinances, and we incorporated the retrocession agreement, valuable sections of that to kind of get that cross-jurisdictional issue filled out. if you'd like, I can send you a copy and we'd love to hear any comments or suggestions on how you think that would work or if it'd work at all. So
I'd love to see that, Mike. It's good to see you on the TV here, by the way.
good to see you too.
And Mike just brought up the last and I think most important thing that I wanted to make sure I talked to you all about today, and that's retrocession. The retrocession agreement is up for renewal in 2023. And over the years, there's just a couple of tweaks and changes to it that I would like to see. And I think the document could better reflect the way things actually happen on the ground between our law enforcement officers. And I just would like to explore the idea of setting up a working group between the relevant agencies here at the tribes and at the county to sit down and kind of start meeting about that next year, and identify some stuff that maybe I haven't even seen. For example, part of the retrocession agreement says rather explicitly that tribal cops can issue MIP citations to non-tribal members and vice versa, but it doesn't ever say felony drug citations. So the idea that tribal police officers are doing drug investigations and writing felony citations into district court isn't properly contemplated in the retrocession agreement. I think it's entirely legal outside of the agreement because they're all sworn law enforcement officers and appropriately cross-deputized, et cetera. But it'd be nice to have the agreement actually reflect what it is that we're doing on the ground. And there's room in there to incorporate animal control if that's appropriate. I'd like to sit down with Maylin. I've had a couple preliminary conversations with her. And I think Mr. Taylor retired early because he didn't want to deal with this. But somebody from the tribal law enforcement, Craig or Louis or somebody, and maybe the undersheriff and me should sit down and start hacking away at that, because if Public Law 280 sticks around for another year here or more, as I think we all want to see some version of that happen, we're going to have to re-up that agreement and get on the same page with that.
Good idea. Yep. Good, Louis. No. Yeah, that's a good task for the future.
Chairman McDonald, it's good to see you. Council members as well. My name is Lance Jasper, and I'm here with my partner, Rob Bell. And just echoing what James has said is, as we're dealing with the Public Law 280 issue, and I understand that that's not an item to be discussed here today after talking to Ryan, but I just wanted to echo what he's said, is that a real goal here of what we're trying to do is to continue that process through all of the times that we've met and consulted and talked about, trying to make it better, because really the goal is to make it a better place. And even through all the discussions that I've sat here and listened to, a lot of that falls back onto is fundings and the conditions of the detention center and lack of ability to get the needed treatment, or even sometimes just evaluations to help the situation move forward. And I just want to echo, is everything that we're trying to do is to make that a better system under Public Law 280. And I look forward to consulting, working together, because I really believe that the united front that is possible between both the tribe and the county is the best way that we can accomplish making sure that it stays as it is and works as good as it is, but with more funding to eliminate a lot of the problems that I know of. And it's kind of interesting for me because a lot of my practice is in this area and seeing both the frustration of the prosecutors and then the defense attorneys, and likewise the poor individuals that are in custody that are trying to get the steps going forward, is being frustrated by funding that should be there. And so I knowing that we can't really sit here today to discussion, but one is I am always open for calls and happy to meet with you and continue discussions. I also want to, avail myself for anything. Some of the questions that were asked today about how other jurisdictions work, I'm happy to talk about that as well. But mainly is that, we're going into the legislative session as it is right now, and want to be in the best position possible to help the county and likewise help all of the tribal members who are also Lake County residents. And so I just wanted to, at every point that I've had a discussion with Ryan, or whether it be with you, Mr. Chairman, or another member of the council, is at all times I want to be open and so that you know exactly what it is that we are doing and trying to accomplish on it, and do so in a manner that best helps everyone here. Because as it currently sets, the state is not pulling the weight that they should be, and a lot of that I believe can be resolved with working together, and that's what we've been trying to do. So it's my understanding and that you would like a letter from us or something, and I was just hoping you could explain what it would be that you would need. Part of the statute requires that we do have some type of, I guess, a formal consultation or something. I mean, I feel like we've been consulting and having that all the time, with whether it be in meetings with the lieutenant governor or, working with Ryan or Shane, that type of thing. But lockstep is just, so much more can be done when we are a united group. And this truly is a statewide issue. And that's what we're trying to show, is that we don't want to have the legislature do what they did last time. And I think we're set up in a good spot to where we can accomplish the goals and allow it to continue to operate as it has been, with more funding, to make it a better and safer place for everyone here, and really help a lot of the people that are struggling with addiction to be in a situation that you're not storing cordwood. And I that's what is going on here, and that's it's tragic on that part, but it has to be brought up in the legislature and recognized that it has to be addressed in a manner that will protect the integrity of everyone and the rights of everyone. Because as it sits right now, a lot of good ideas are being talked about here, but if we don't get that funding, frankly, they're pipe dreams. And so if you could just let me know what it is that you would like, we're happy to fulfill that. Legislature is starting on January 3rd. There's legislation already drafted to hopefully address the funding portion of it, and would be happy to meet with you anytime next week. But we definitely want to have this front and center as a major issue that the legislature has to deal with this year to allow this to continue as it is, because that's what we want.
Well, thank you, Lance. Appreciate it. I know you're dedicated to the topic, and my observation of your work is in this regard is been really well taken as far as your work and your dedication to it. When we talk about consultation, we've learned from at least my 45 years working here that we want to make sure that we cover that, and when we're engaged in that, we're engaged with the other side, with people that are in decision-making authority that can come to the table to be able to do that. But for this in particular case, it kind of goes to what James is talking about quite a bit, is we need to internally get our list together, what it means, what do we want to talk about, and who should be at the table. So that's usually our process when we get engaged. It's not some, ad lib thing or, ad hoc thing that's real on the spot, that's the last resort. So we want to make sure we do it, our due diligence with this. And so that's the case that we would be doing, particularly for Public Law 280.
Okay, and I'm happy to do that. And I guess the issue, or question I would have for you, Mr. Chairman, is how do I go about making that happen? And so that, we only have a limited number of days here with the legislature. And so is this something we could accomplish next week?
I'm going to leave that up to our staff, and our legal department is going to be the lead on it as far as getting what we would like to see in it. And we can work on that as quickly as possible. I'll leave it up to Lana and Dan and company to look at that, Lance. Understand that, understand the legislative session. Something to happen between now and the 3rd is not going to happen.
No, I understand that with the holiday and that, but I'm just trying to, again, we've lined up, we have pressure. We're like, when you got momentum, we don't want to lose it. And that's part of it. And it's not that's why from the very beginning, Mr. Chairman, I pride myself on two things. One is I just simply don't tell lies to any person I'm working with. It just works a lot better, but I'm too dumb to keep things straight. And so, and every part of this is I'm an open book. So any of you are more than welcome to call me. My cell phone is 406-370-3431. And I'm happy to answer questions or anything that you might have at any time. And it might not even have to do with Public Law 280. I just, you have something you want to run by me, I'm happy to do that. It's just, again, my focus here is what I was tasked with is to make this work. And I want to make it work for both of you. And that's why.
Yeah, absolutely, Lance. And I just want to say this, in the one meeting that you helped facilitate with Lieutenant Governor at Nine Pipes, I thought you did an outstanding job, and in that particular case, so representing the topic well. So
I wish I would have been more effective. It didn't seem like we had a person that was really integrated with us at that point. But
it demonstrates, though, Lance, is that how ignorant so many people are to this topic. And so it demonstrates that I need to be fully diligent in having everything put together as best you can. And for us, it's real critical because you're really talking about the native population on this reservation. So it's really critical for us to make sure we have this done and our discussions are worthwhile.
Yeah.
Not ad hoc.
And I want to also let you know that I understand that is Mark Taylor is one of maybe your lobbyists is Mark. I think, yeah, Mark. On it
Mark
as
Baker?
well. Baker, sorry, not Taylor. I knew I was missing one part, and so likewise, I know that I've tried to bring him up to information as well, so that he would have knowledge in that part. And likewise, if he needs information, happy to do that as well. Again, it's one goal here, and it's for us to win. And when I say us, it's all of us right here in this room and all tribal members, because I have been on other reservations, and this is the best system. Even though there's problems with it right now, it is the best by far. And so we want to protect that. And I'm hoping that with the two of us going together, lockstep, and that it's a system we just can't be beat. And so that's why I'm here, is I want to encourage that we get the chance to, when we go over and talk and give testimony, it's we're strong.
Thank you, Lance. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Just want to say CSKT is notorious for our consultation process in federal agencies. So when Tom talks about consultation, it means that we have all of our ducks in a row. We understand what we're getting into, and we know we can educate about it. And so, and as of right now, we're not at that point. We need to bring all departments together that will be impacted. And so it sounds like a daunting task, and it is. I know Martin, a couple weeks back, brought it up with your President of the United States, and when I was back there, I did the same. Consultation is number one, so we understand it very well. But I think it's us helping you understand it, so you know what to expect.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I am new to politics, to be honest. I am usually tasked with legal, and this is going a little bit on the outside of maybe my comfort zone. But I also see a strategy that we've been working on and working together on, and it's not just me. I mean, it's been working with the tribe and working with Ryan and Shane and trying to line these things up so that there's just not failure, because I don't like that, and I want to see the best thing possible for both the tribe and the county is represented here, and you know, that's the goal. That's what I was tasked with.
Thank you, Lance. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, Carol, thank you for, reminding us how important it is to properly consult with the tribes. I know that there's a history of you not being consulted with thoroughly that needs to be respected here. And I would be happy to work with your legal team. I know that Shane had suggested that perhaps sitting down with Lena would be the best way to get this accomplished. And if there's anything I can do to help facilitate that process, I'm happy to do that. And I just want to say that regardless of what happens with Public Law 280, if it changes, if it's assumed by somebody else, I'm here to fulfill my obligations to everybody here in Lake County until I'm relieved by somebody else or something else happens. And so I'm fully committed to my role here with public safety for everybody here in Lake County, and that includes tribal members until and unless somebody tells me it doesn't anymore. So I think it's a great system, and I've been working in it since 2007 or 2008. I got my start here actually as a tribal defender for Ann Miller, working with Larry Jennings, and have been here on the reservation for almost my entire career prosecuting and working with this system. And I'm kind of committed to making sure that it continues to work as good as possible with whatever resources I'm given from whatever source that they come from. But I'd like to help Lance try and get us some more money so I can do a better job for you all.
Thank you, James.
And Carol, just so you know, I've been following my lead on as far as sharing information by Ryan and that. And so whatever's asked of me, that's what I've been trying to do. And so I'll definitely do what it is that is needed. And I respect that part. Being informed is a very critical thing, and I want that. So I appreciate your comment.
Thank you, Lance. Lena?
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up with Lance and just let him know that, as a tribe too, we want to know that you are the point of contact. We've never seen any letters or anything from the county showing exactly that you're the one that is the main point of contact for the consultation, if that's what you want to consider it to be or not. So I think that's what we're trying to do, is we want to formalize it to make sure that we are speaking with appropriate people that we need to, and doing that moving forward. So that's why the chair is saying that the legal department will come in, and you can talk with Lindsay will be probably the point of contact person for that, to go in, and then, if you want to formally consult with the tribal council, then you need to come up with a letter from your clients asking for that. And then we can sit down and determine exactly what type of consulting we want to and discuss within that.
I'm happy to do that. I have sent letters.
And that's the thing, is moving forward, then that would be the point of contact will be Lindsay, and Ryan and Shane will no longer be that point of contact.
That's
And then,
what I understand.
and doing that, and consulting with Ryan and Shane is not a consult with the tribal government. So, that's where I think we're wanting to make that clear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lana. Go ahead, Ellie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope it's okay to change the topic, but in your introduction, James, you mentioned fentanyl. I'm just curious on like what your plan is. We have our guys kind of beating the ground, you know, and trying to get that off the streets, but if you can just speak to that.
What we're doing with our fentanyl epidemic right now, and I guess, broad strokes, this is an international problem. The chemicals that are being used to make it in Mexico are coming from Asia, and they're all being funneled across the international borders and up through California or in from ships into Seattle and Portland, and then they're coming all here either through the interstate or back roads of the interstate. You can go to Spokane and buy these pills for $1 or $2. You can sell them in Missoula for $20. You can sell them in Kalispell for $30, and you can sell them in Pablo for $40. And so we're seeing a lot of people who are taking a road trip over to Spokane. They're buying 200-300 pills, and they're hoping to make a whole lot of money. The Highway Patrol over on the interstate has been doing a bang-up job of interdiction, but it's just flooding across the state border. I like to come here and tell you all about the employees that you have that are doing an excellent job. And Will Mestiff and Vern Fisher, I've worked with them for over a decade now, and they're phenomenal. Christian Haynes and Desmond Joseph have recently, I don't know if they've been tasked or promoted, but they're working with the drug task force, and they're doing great work there too. So those 4 guys in particular, I'm real impressed with, and they're getting a lot of pills off the street. They're working with the sheriff's office really well. We've got one narcotics investigator who is out doing his investigations, but we're just kind of getting flooded with it. The federal prosecutors have stepped in, and they've started taking more of these cases, but they have really tight standards. I like to joke that the federal prosecutors won't take a case unless there's a videotaped Mirandized confession in a size 12 bow tied a certain way and delivered on a Thursday. They've got some rather high standards, but they are helping and taking a little bit of work off of our plate. One of the delicate balances that I think it's incumbent on my office to look at when we're prosecuting drug cases is most of these drug dealers are also drug users. And it's difficult sometimes to parse out who needs treatment and help and who needs punishment and to be locked away for a long time because they're poisoning and killing people. So I get a little righteous in court sometimes when I've got people with 1,000 pills that they're selling, hoping to make $40,000, and they want to get out of jail because they'd like to get a CD eval and maybe get some help because they think that they have a drug problem. And you don't have a drug problem, you have a capitalism problem. You're out here trying to profit while other people are being poisoned. So that's the line that my office is trying to take. There's probably a little bit of gray area in the middle sometimes, but I want to reduce the demand by treating people with addiction so that they stop buying pills, and I want to hammer the suppliers so there's less pills to be bought. But this is a supply and demand issue, and I don't know, I want to attack both of those. We used to have blue pills, now we have rainbow colored pills. That's changed over the last year. These pills get sent to the crime lab, and we've had a bunch of them tested, and none of them are exactly the same. Some of them contain fentanyl, some of them contain carafentanil, some of them contain parafluorofentanyl. I think it's all basically the same stuff, but I don't exactly trust the Mexican drug compounders to do a good job of that. We found cocaine, heroin, meth, MDMA, and actually the thing that scared me the most was I saw a couple that came back with benzodiazepines in them. And if you're a doctor who's trying to kill somebody, like assisted suicide, you administer a narcotic and a benzodiazepine. It's like the textbook cocktail to kill somebody. And so when both of those showed up in one pill, it took me aback.
I'm dismissing a case against the defendant and quashing a warrant because they're dead on kind of a regular basis now. Every couple of months, I get a email from dispatch, so-and-so's deceased, can we quash their warrant? And I look at that as a failure when we're dealing with people who we should have prosecuted better and got them help, and we didn't, and they're no longer with us. And that's happening with increased regularity. I don't know, Ellie, I think I've forgotten your question and I'm just rambling now, but what else can I tell you about what we're doing or what's happening out there?
That's good. You just mentioned it in your introduction, so I just wanted your perspective, and I just know our guys, are hitting the streets hard and doing all of the work, and being able to prosecute on that front is helpful. Additionally, you mentioned you have one Lake County officer, probably not in your wheelhouse, and I've, discussed it with Commissioner Stanley, but maybe trying to get additional guys on your end, at least to match our 4.
We've got 4 detectives. One of them is primarily doing narcotics work. 2 of them are primarily doing sexual assault type work, work with kids. They're frequently on Zoom calls with the Children's Advocacy Resource Centers in Kalispell and Missoula. First Step is the agency down in Missoula, and we've actually been having some preliminary discussions about what it would take to have our own Children's Advocacy Center here on the reservation, so that we're not taking children who've been sexually abused and telling their parent, you should take them down to Missoula and get them checked out, because oftentimes that doesn't happen. And I'm hopeful right now that we can set up a child appropriate interview room that's staffed with people who are trained to do forensic interviews of juveniles across the street from the courthouse. I've found a location that's perfect, that's being used for something else that lends itself to a really good collaboration there. But trying to build that out with the right staff is another side project of mine right now. And then we have a 4th detective who's kind of doing some close cold case stuff and forensic accounting things and other stuff. But yeah, if we had more drug detectives, that would help out. Because of some of the relationships I have with some of these people, we do a lot of prioritizing. The narcotics investigators from the tribes are able to shoot me a text message and say, hey, we busted this guy last night and there wasn't any room in the Lake County jail, but he's in the tribal jail and he's got a month-long sentence to serve on something else. And then I can coordinate with the sheriff's office that we find room for that guy sometime in the next week or 2. It's a lot of finagling behind the doors, but there's a lot of people that are all working together to make it work. So we're doing the best we can there.
Lana?
I just had I was sitting back here and thinking about the CD evaluations, and when you brought up the issue of the administrative loophole that's not doing it, would that be maybe a potential that we could look at, is trying to come up with some corrective action to do that, to seeing why, they treat it different as to when people are incarcerated, with being able to come in quickly and get those CD evaluations other than when they're not. Within the state, that seems like it would be a good administrative fix if we could do that, where they're looking at them just as important, because if we put them out in society again and they have those different issues, it's going to be a continual cycle. So, and in order just to be able to see them coming in for CD evaluations, you had mentioned something in regards to, they don't look at them the same as if they're in jail as they do if they're not.
Yeah, it's I think it's, well, the Tribal Defender's Office has kind of a broad mandate and access to tribal health services in a tribal facility. So I think that a lot of the interagency hurdles are kind of stripped away when we're dealing with it here. Once the tribal jail serves a warrant from a state agency on an inmate, they tend to get transported to the county, and then they're with us until we're done with them. But
the nuances, I guess, of how we ship inmates back and forth between our facilities is complicated, but, Commissioner Stanley's, since he's showed up here at the courthouse, hasn't been afraid to roll up his sleeves and find a little bit of money to save us more money in the long run. And if we can get the personnel lined up, the cost of that evaluation actually should be nominal compared to the cost of not getting it done. So if we can figure out a way to do that, and maybe I should talk with you and Ann and figure out exactly what Ann's doing before we reinvent the wheel.
Thanks, James.
One thing that, because we have Commissioner Stanley here in his former position, I just want to say that I've always been impressed with Lake County and disaster emergency services stuff that they do. So, especially when we look past this past summer and things like that. But I think it's always ways we can collaborate better in that regard. Where I think we're looking at that program internally for the tribes and trying to figure out maybe a new way to do business. So I'd like to pick your brain with that. Probably on a sidebar sometime, Steve, if that's okay.
Great segue into one comment I'd like the council to know. Years ago, I had Kerry Cooley in a fuel reduction program for Lake County. And it was funded by tribal dollars. And it was a partnership between Tribal Fire Management and Lake County. And it was a win-win. Kerry's administrative costs were below 10%. She did a stellar job and she left us when funding dried up. Kerry's back. And Kerry's back because of a program that Tribal Fire Management has come up with and working with Whitney. And they've hit the ground running. I think it's about 4 months now we've had Kerry. The program is just getting on the ground. I think we got our first approval on a project in White Swan Point. Kerry is now bringing in some state dollars from DNRC. You want to talk about the tribe and the counties working together on a program that really, when you look at the fires we've had, White Swan Point, when they're done, will be very fire resistant. And thank you. And again, that's a real success story. And yes, I'd be love to sit down with you. This is one commissioner that would like to apologize to council. I did not know Lance was coming today, and I apologize. I apologize. So I'm not very happy, just so you're aware.
That's okay. That's Lance. So, you know.
Well, he represents the county, and so I'm not very happy. So please accept my apology.
Oh well, thank you, Steve. But again, it's Lance. So, any other items that council has that want to bring up to Commissioner Stanley or county attorney?
I don't have anything else that was on my agenda. I want to thank Shane for helping to set this up for me. He's always done an excellent job with representing the tribes through me, and we work really well together. I'm sorry that you're going to be losing him a little bit here over the next couple of months, but I expect he'll do good work over in Helena and he'll come back. But you're lucky to have him, and it's always a pleasure to work with him and his team.
Thank you, James. Well, certainly, we're very happy you're in your position. So, and again, congratulations on both of you. We're happy for both of you. And you know, my experience with your work history has been the highest integrity. And same thing with you, Steve, is highest integrity. So that's how we build relationships. And really appreciate you coming in today. Absolutely do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Martin?
I just kind of wanted to echo, of course, what he said. You know, working with you guys has been really a breath of fresh air that I truly, honestly didn't expect. You know, I've been on 3 years, and granted, we were forced to work together on COVID, but I think that made us realize what was important, and that's our kids and our elders and the safety of our communities as a whole. I mean, we can't just fix our community and, you know, expect, you know, the other communities not to continue with their kind of, issues as well. And so it's, a community effort here. And I think that that's something that we all hopefully can work towards and continue. I mean, it's really been with all the commissioners so far, it's been good on my side. I can't speak for the rest of the 10, but yeah, thank you guys for coming down. And, I would say a few years ago, this meeting probably would never would have happened because of whatever reasons, but it's a new day, I hope, and keep this going. Maybe we could talk you and stay a little longer, Mr. Stanley.
I was raised by the best, that was Lloyd Jackson. And you talk about a time, this is 40 years ago, 35 years ago, that working together was sort of a new thing. And then Jolene Jacobson was the other one that we referred to our relationship as a marriage, and it was. We worked on it every day. There's areas we could succeed. We'll find those areas and continue. Thanks.
Absolutely. I certainly wish that for the new year. So, thank you. And Happy New Year. Keep that freezing rain away, So, drive safe, you guys. Okay, who's up next?
Lana.
Lana's back.
Did you want executive?
All right, we'll move into executive. Did you need a break? Motion by Len to approve the resolution for the supporting the 2022 letter of intent to be considered for inclusion in the Bureau of Indian Affairs Tawahi Initiative deadline, December 31st, 2022. Second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for working on it. I hope you make the deadline. You will.
Mr. Chair,
Confident. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
could we also take action to appoint Kevin Howlett?
Oh, yes, we can do that, definitely. Motion by Len to approve appointing Kevin Howlett to the SKT Board of Directors, the directors. Second by Martin.
Mine's still my motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, okay. Okay, Renee, you're up. Sorry, Renee, put you to last, I know, dang it. That's what happens when the majority of you are in the building,
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of council. I have 3 issues that I'd like to discuss with council. The first, I did prepare a resolution to renew the COVID leave of 80 hours for employees for calendar year 23, if council agrees with that. I don't know what council's decision was to eliminate it. The last resolution stated that you would review the policy at least annually to determine if it should be extended, modified, or terminated. Oh, we're on page 17. Okay.
Well, I might be one person that doesn't really consider this as worthy of anything anymore, but that's me. I would not extend it myself.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Bing.
we just lost a tribal member here this week or last week from COVID. And, he's they have him down at the community center right now down in RE. So I would go ahead and extend this maybe for another year, because we don't know what's going on yet. And I know there's a lot of people out there still hasn't had all their vaccinations. My wife just got her yesterday, and been a long time since I've been after her to do it, but there's other people out there that hasn't received their vaccinations yet. And I would go ahead and extend it to maybe again for another year before we get rid of it.
Thanks, Bing. Go ahead, Ellie.
Question, Renee, do we have any idea how many people have utilized in like the last 6 months COVID leave?
I do have that information. April, May, and June of 22, we had 76. July, August, and September, we had 111. So 187 total.
Mr. Chairman, I myself would have to support an extension, so I would make the motion to support the COVID leave policy for 1 more year.
Motion by Len to support the renewal of the COVID leave usage for calendar year 2023.
Second that.
Martin?
I'm curious to where the funding is gonna come for these 80 hours. Because previously it was paid for out of CARES funding, which I believe is no more. And also the ARP funding is gone as well, so 80 hours per each employee is a lot of money.
Yeah, the CARES funding closed out and the ARPA funding will be depleted shortly. Good point. Mike?
Just one question, is quarantine required of anybody now? When they have COVID, 5 days quarantine, and do their contacts have to quarantine? So that's a big difference in when we saw the policy before too.
Right, and I believe if you're vaccinated, you can still work, you just have to wear a mask during that 5-day period.
Good point. Definitely a different operating scheme when I had COVID versus when COVID first came out. It's true. I didn't stay away from work, basically. I shared it with my colleagues. Just trying to make it tougher. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Can we change it to a week? Just because I know it's decreased and it doesn't seem like it's as bad as it was in the beginning, but some people still get really sick from it. And it's hard to say. And I certainly would hope that someone would, if someone has COVID, that they would have the decency to stay home. People don't, but I would definitely support those who do. I stayed home when I had COVID because I didn't want to spread it to anybody. Anyway, I would support it maybe a week instead of 2 weeks.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's true. Mine was over a weekend. It was just a 5-day thing versus, 10 days. Go ahead, Mike.
There's a lot of illnesses I hope people don't come to work with besides COVID. So I don't see it a lot different than now.
Go ahead, Martin. Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just thinking about those mothers with kids. If they have to stay home with their kids, with that scenario. So just cognizant of that.
Martin?
couldn't we do 40 hours and then use this leave share that we're gonna approve here in a minute for the people that have it more severe or have several members in their household sick, because at least we kind of know where that funding's coming from. And I'm just not willing to write a blank check for, 40 hours times however many employees we have. And I know not all of them will use it, but that's a lot of money.
Carol?
Yeah, I think this organization has a lot of ability to accrue leave, and so they have leave on the books. I would like to see employees use their leave and then make an exception for people who don't have leave because they have children and they still need to be paid. I like that consideration better. I mean, there's people that get 12 hours of leave. What for? They only have 10-hour days, right? Is that true, Renee? Or is it yeah, so.
Yes, I broke out the leave by your years of service, how many hours you accrue each year.
Yeah, so people have leave, let them use it. And it's about time we start, instead of when they decide to retire, that they have 1,000 hours of leave and had to give all these other hours away. That's not everybody, so I do want to make an exception for people with families, small children. And I've had COVID recently and it wasn't fun, but it was passed quickly enough.
Martin?
I would like to table this until we know where the funding's coming from.
You do have a motion in a second.
I'll rescind my motion.
Who was the second? Oh. Bing, would you be okay with, rescinding your second so we can table it to get more information on the funding?
Sure.
Okay.
And then do you want us to check on the 40 hours for just the COVID leave and then also for leave share, or do you want to leave leave share as just how it is right now? Because they would be able to qualify under the regular leave share.
I think that's the important aspect of this, because for me, we combine leave together. So people have sick leave, and that's part of their leave program. And that's what the intent is for them to use it for. And to replace that sick leave with another form of sick leave just doesn't make sense to me. Unless you're exhausted, and then we have leave share. So really, the structure and system is there for me to, at this point in time, at this tailoring off end of the pandemic. That's, but let's, come back with more details on what the funding costs would be, and so then we can take a more deliberative action. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Renee. Oh, good. Good. Hang in there, Carol. All right, everybody, jump up, get some jumping jacks in.
I lost my spot. Okay, the second issue was, I was informed that council wanted to have a discussion on the 60-day limitation for leave sharing purposes. The current leave sharing policy requires employees to be off work for 60 days, which is called the elimination period for the long-term disability program. So we count those days as calendar days so that the calculation is equal based on an employee working the 8-hour days versus 10-hour days. So once they fulfill that 60-day limitation, then they'll be eligible for leave sharing. So if I applied for leave sharing on January 1st, my approval date, if I'm approved, would be March 1st. And that's the amount of time I'd be approved to accept leave donations if I was out of leave. January 1st to March 1st. 60 days. We count them as calendar days. And like Carol referenced, I did go through the paid time off accrual. When you start for the tribe, you accrue 208 hours a year. That's approximately 21 days. 3 to 5 years of service, you accrue 234 hours per year. That's approximately 25 days. 6 to 8 years of service, you accrue 10. 260 hours, 26 days. 9 to 11, you accrue 286 hours per year. That's about 29 days. And 12 or more years of service, you get 12 hours per pay period, and that's 312 hours per year, which is 31 days.
So Renee, when you were talking about the 60 days, just a little bit ago, calendar days, is that expressed in the ordinance where you just described it?
The ordinance refers to, it just says days. It doesn't say working days or calendar days. It just says days. So that's a clarification we need to put in there when we bring the ordinance changes in.
Right, and just to clarify, the reason they did calendar is because if you do 60 work days, your people that work 410s actually get paid an extra full check versus people that would work 5/8. Because they're losing a day.
Why don't you just express it in worked hours then?
Express what?
Express it in hours versus days.
That's a possibility.
Because there's all kinds of weird schedules.
Right, there are.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where we ended up having people say, well, do we count a holiday as part of that? And all these, and so it's been back and forth, and so we can do whatever needs to be done.
Just say hours.
Hours?
Yeah.
So there's no ambiguity to it at all.
Yeah. Should it be? That's what it says. Okay, that'll take council action to change the ordinance, so we'll have to come back with that.
Sounds good.
And then one more thing. I did, on page 20, there's a list of the employee service awards that are given. We have not established an award for 50 years of service. I know there are 2 employees that I know of that have 50 years of service or had 50 years of service. One retired and one is still working.
Yeah, I looked at the page and I don't know how we jumped from, it was a $250 increment change between the award points till you got to the last one, it became a $500 one. So my suggestion would be is make all the changes at 250 and revise it to 250 for each one. If you're going to add 50, then you know it matches. So the max you would get would be 1,500, but that would be at 50 years of service. That's just my suggestion. But Martin?
So who tracks these?
I do.
So where's my Ruby pin at?
It's in the mail.
Along with my COVID money?
I do the best I can. I'm the only one that works on the employee awards. I will get you your pin.
I don't even know if I should be at 15. If my math is right. Or maybe it's my old age, I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember a 30 or a 35 or 40, but that's me. I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. That's what mattered. Mike?
So after 25 years of service, you could just be 250 for every added 5 years, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to worry about 50, 55, 60, whatever, just every 5 years.
Every 5 years, bump it $250. Yeah, could be casino bucks.
And see, the 25 years of service, you can have a 25-year service award jacket. Did you want to take that out of the policy then? And just
I said after 25 years.
after, okay.
That sound good to everybody? Martin, got a thought, I can see it.
I know we're trying to get away from Pendleton because they're truly not a native company. That first generation out of Seattle they make pretty nice blankets. Just a thought. People love Pendletons.
What I would like is, something local that our
Yeah.
local artists make.
Well, even the People Center, giving a gift certificate to the employee for the People Center.
People
instead of
Center, the Bison Rangers gift shop, or, yeah, that would be really good. Yeah, that would be a good idea.
The Pendleton blankets currently we get from 219 Main in Polson, and they're running 270. When I first started doing the employee awards, they've gone up quite a bit. It used to be 155 for a Pendleton, now it's 270.
I think it'd be just really nice if we had, some stuff on stock that our local artists made.
Mhm.
And maybe then it gets customized, depends on the individual getting the award, and it's something more personal, done locally, and we're recycling our money to our local members versus the Pendleton company. And
Mr. Chair, sleeping on a Pendleton is like sleeping on a scratcher in the sink, thing. Like, who wants to? Yeah.
I actually break out from wool, so, be a nice fleece. Where you go?
I need a motion to change it.
All right, is that clear enough, or how you doing, Renee?
I just need a motion to change the,
Motion to change the employee awards program to $250 incremental gift certificate from 25 years of service every 5 years from there on. I think that's what Mike said. Motion by Mike, seconded by Ellie. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor? Yeah. Unanimous. Jennifer left the meeting. Thank you, Bing. All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Have a happy new year.
You guys drive safe out there. Okay, Jen.
Can we go into executive really quick?
All right, one more thing. We're gonna move into executive for the last item of the day.